Hey there, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. I'm taking a little break from the kitchen today because I'm basically having the same lunch that I shared with you in that video yesterday. Made enough, obviously I cooked my beans in batches, so I have enough beans left over. Got pretty much everything left over, so just going to do a redo of yesterday. But today I thought I'd talk about my thoughts on fat in the plant-based diet. And let me just point out right as I'm going in my thoughts on fat on a plant-based diet. People get very emotional about the subject of fat. People almost have religions all centered around fat. This is just like answering questions how I eat it and what I do. And this is not trying to tell you, you need to do this, you need to do that. I'm not an evangelist for this lifestyle. I just like to, share what I'm doing and to share the sources. That'll be the most important thing, because I'm not going to get deep into the science of fat. In fact, I'm just going to barely scrape the surface because there's so many good talks to listen to out there. I'm going to really stress to you at the beginning of this video, you need to check out two of the sources that I'm always talking about. And one is The Proof with Simon Hill, and the second one is The Exam Room, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. They both have a podcast, and they put their podcast on YouTube. And if you will go to, like for instance, go to wherever, if you're going to your podcast or if you're going to YouTube, go in, search The Proof with Simon Hill Fat, The Proof with Simon Hill Oil, and you will come up with some like really deep, nuanced lectures on the subject. And hey, just go listen, and you make up your mind for you, instead of going with this comment, going with that comment, and listening to what everybody else has to say. I feel like you understand things better when you just step back away from, say, a conversation, a debate online, and you just consume the conversation yourself. And there's hours and hours of it over there. Simon is a little bit more liberal when it comes to certain fats and oils. Dr. Barnard on the Physicians Committee, the Exam Room podcast, he is a little bit more less fat. Now, I'll tell you what, I am somewhere like Goldilocks when it comes to fat. Not too much, not too little. Another person I've listened to a lot on this subject is Dr. Joel Fuhrman. And he's not somebody I've been following for a long time. I don't even follow him that closely, but from what I can gather from listening to talks of his over the last few years, like he's even increased his thoughts on fats, or he's actually increased fat a little bit throughout the years. But let's make sure that we clarify that kind of stuff. When it comes to fats, people, almost every time I share a video, somebody will ask me, I'll get at least one comment, probably not every video, but I get enough comments to ask it, do you eat oil? I don't really consume a lot of oil, but I'm also not somebody that's like, oh God, oil is toxic. The second you eat a drop of it, you're going to die. I use olive oil. Let me think of the things that I use it for. I use it very seldom. I use like two teaspoons when I cook a pot of brown rice. Sometimes I will measure out and use a tablespoon here and there. But the point being is, here's another thing I should stress, I'm very intentional, right, wrong, whatever. I'm very intentional when I'm eating fats. I'm not just like pouring out of something. I'm not just, when I'm eating nuts or seeds or whatever, I'm not just sitting there scarfing them down, eating unlimited amounts. I have a certain amount in mind. I have certain serving sizes that I'm going to eat them in. I'm not going to just sit down and just like consume a gob of fat. I like to just get it. The biggest reason I don't use a lot of oil is there's so many calories in such a small amount of oil. You can get so much more by the whole sources. Plus you get the fiber in there as well. Nuts and seeds. I eat a lot of nuts and seeds. And I've got a little scale over there. When I have nuts, I don't do it now because I've kind of figured out like by sight, like how much weight wise it is, but like I'll measure out my walnuts, I'll measure out certain nuts that I use. When I'm using seeds, I use certain amounts of those. I'll use tablespoons or teaspoons or whatever, but I'm not like just willy-nilly eating fat because it's the good fat. I've heard a number of people say that to me that are both non-plant-based and that are plant-based, but it's good fat, almost like you can just eat non-stop as much as you want on good fat. And some people believe that, and I'm not going to ever try to get into a discussion with people that just take hot takes or a contrarian view on the subject. I try to go for things that are good sources of polyunsaturated fat and monounsaturated fat. One of the best nuts, and that's why I use them quite often, are walnuts. Walnuts are one of the healthiest nuts that we can get out there. Now, as far as how much I use, well, let me just say nut seeds, avocado, tahini. Sorry about that. People are bad about just coming to the door unsolicited here with something or letting you know they're going to be doing something. There's always something going on. I'm not a fan of strangers coming to the door, but I think I left off. I was talking about walnuts. Walnuts are one of the healthiest nuts. Great source of polyunsaturated fats. And the polyunsaturated and the monounsaturated fats are really what I shoot for. But I'm still not trying to scarf down a lot of unsaturated fats either. I try to focus on the omega-3 fats as well. That's why I'm always eating a lot of flax seeds, chia seeds, and sunflower seeds. But I'll be quite honest with you, with the omega-3s, I've gotten back to supplementing on that because everything that I consume, there's a very small percentage of people that actually convert the ALA to the EPA and DHA, which is the one. I mean, it's easier to get the ALA, but the other two not so much, and they don't convert that much. So that's something I really wish I had the means to get my blood tested on a regular basis, and I am before the end of the year going to test my omega-3. But yeah, I try to focus on those. But as far as how much I eat throughout the day, I will generally, sometimes I don't really think about it. It's not necessarily I'm like, okay, I plan it out. But depending on what I decide to eat for lunch, breakfast, dinner, whatever, I will just, eat accordingly. Like for instance, I will most of the time, and it's not a rule, most of the times I will include fat in something once a day. Like yesterday, what did I eat? I had some of that cheese sauce, but that was very little because once it was made into a sauce, I had some cashews, and a little bit later on, I had about an ounce of nuts. An ounce, I know, because I've got a little scale over there. Like I said, I think I said that before I got interrupted. That's the most important thing, is just being intentional and knowing how much you eat, because it can get away from you. You sit down on the couch with a bag of nuts, or you don't measure a lot of this stuff especially in the beginning when you're not used to how much fat is in nuts and seeds. If you really if you play around a little bit and either use a measuring cup or a scale and you weigh out and see how much it can add up, you can easily sit down and scarf down like 600, 700, 800 calories in nuts really quick. And that's the same thing with that oil. You can just pour it on there, but being very intentional with that fat. But yeah, that'll generally be, a lot of times it'll be one time I'll have my fat with one meal throughout the day. I don't always stick to that. Sometimes I will have a smoothie and I'll put an ounce of walnuts in there, and then I will have some a dressing with some tahini in it later. So like I say in there, we do need our healthy fat. We don't need to go too high with that. I still I'm a little bit higher than I was when I was in Costa Rica, because I did some things, like especially that last year on the mountain, like I got a little obsessed with doing no covert fat for periods of time. And looking back, it really didn't offer all that much. But like I say, not going the other way and saying, okay, scarf down a lot. I've kind of found that happy place. And like I say, this is just for me, just telling you how much I eat. So on any given day, I'm probably eating about an ounce of nuts, a tablespoon or two of tahini, various seeds. Maybe some days I will use seeds. Some days I've got a nice fat avocado over there. But anyhow, go listen to some of these talks. If you're really that interested in your health, in your nutrition, in the subject, you would do yourself wise to not necessarily take, like, you can use people like that are on YouTube to point you in a direction, but always go verify everything for yourself. Go listen to some of these sources, because it would be like listening to me talk about a subject is like listening to a college freshman speak on the subject versus a professor speak on the subject. So anyhow, that's where I am on fat. Hope you guys enjoyed this one today. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up. Might do a video over the weekend. If not, I'll see you next week. Peace.